Harmonious intentions. 3 weeks into the mentorship program, Sophia still couldn't believe her reality. The foundation's glass-walled practice rooms overlooked Central Park. Her temporary violin was worth more than everything she owned, and her schedule now included private lessons with masters she'd previously only read about. "Your bowing technique has improved already," remarked Elena Vasquez, the foundation's artistic director, as they reviewed Sophia's progress. "Lucas was right about you." Sophia tried to ignore the flutter in her stomach at his name. "He's been very supportive." Elena's knowing smile suggested she caught more than Sophia intended. "He attends your sessions more than any other mentees. Yesterday he rescheduled a board meeting to hear your Mendelssohn." "He's just being thorough," Sophia insisted, though she remembered how his eyes had followed her movements, how he'd leaned forward during her most challenging passages, as if physically drawn to the music she created. "Of course," Elena agreed, unconvinced. "Just like you just happened to select his favorite Bach arrangement for yesterday's practice." Before Sophia could protest, the door opened and Lucas himself appeared, today in a charcoal suit that emphasized the breadth of his shoulders. Several mentees in the hallway immediately straightened, hoping for his attention, but his eyes found Sophia instantly. "Am I interrupting?" he asked, his usual confidence tinged with something almost shy. "Perfect timing," Elena replied. "I was just telling Sophia about the donor showcase next month. Each mentee performs for our benefactors." "About that," Lucas said, addressing Sophia directly, "I'd like you to consider something more challenging than the standard repertoire. Perhaps the Sibelius Violin Concerto?" Elena raised her eyebrows. "That's usually reserved for second-year mentees." "Sophia isn't usual," Lucas replied simply. After Elena excused herself, Lucas closed the door, reducing the busy hallway to muffled background noise. Alone together, the professional distance he maintained in public settings softened. "You don't have to take on Sibelius if you're not comfortable," he said, leaning against the piano. "I just think you're ready for more." Sophia exhaled slowly. "Why are you doing this? There are more talented musicians in this program." "That's debatable." His gaze was steady. "But talent isn't why I'm here." "Then why?" Lucas ran his hair through his hair, suddenly looking less like the intimidating music mogul and more like someone wrestling with his own thoughts. "The night we met, you played like someone who understands that music isn't just notes on a piece of paper. It's everything we can't say aloud." He took a step closer. "I've spent my life surrounded by technical perfection, Sophia, but what you have is rarer." The air between them seemed to vibrate with unspoken possibilities. Professional boundaries blurred by something neither was ready to name. "People are talking," she admitted quietly. "They say I'm only here because I pulled strings," he finished. "Let them talk. In 6 months, your playing will silence every critic." "And what about you?" she dared ask. "Will you still be watching from the back of the room? Or will this mentorship end and we'll return to our separate worlds?" The question hung between them, both knowing they were no longer discussing music. "It depends," Lucas said softly, "on whether you're playing for the audience or for yourself." He hesitated, then added, "The Foundation's Winter Gala is next weekend. Come as my guest, not as a mentee or server." Before she could answer, the door swung open as the next session's students arrived. "Think about it," he said, professional mask sliding back into place as he stepped away. Later that evening, alone in her practice room, while sunset painted the city gold, Sophia began to play the Sibelius, not for the judges or donors, or even Lucas, but for herself. With each note, the boundary between who she had been and who she might become grew thinner, just like the distance between her world and his. The Symphony of Chance. Part 4, Dissonance and Doubt. The Foundation's Winter Gala transformed the Lincoln Center atrium into a wonderland of crystalline lights and flowing champagne. Sophia stood at its edge in a borrowed gown of deep emerald, feeling like an imposter despite Elena's reassurances that she belonged. "There you are," came a familiar voice. Lucas approached, handsome in his tuxedo, expression warming as he took her in. "You look beautiful," he said simply.
For 2 hours, he introduced her to influential composers and conductors as an extraordinary talent to watch, his hand occasionally brushing the small of her back, sending electricity through her. When they danced, the space between them seemed charged with possibility. "Everyone's watching us," Sophia whispered. "Let them," Lucas replied, his fingers tightening slightly around hers. Later, as they stood on a terrace overlooking the plaza, the night air sharp with winter's approach, Lucas finally said what had been building between them for weeks. "I can't stop thinking about you, Sophia, not just your music." Her heart thundered as he leaned closer, his lips nearly brushing hers, when a sharp voice interrupted. "There you are, darling." They turned to find Vanessa Powell, renowned soprano and Lucas's former partner, resplendent in crimson. Her calculating gaze swept over Sophia. "Aren't you going to introduce me to your protégé?" The word dripped with insinuation. The evening deteriorated rapidly. Wherever Sophia turned, she found knowing smirks or pitying glances. In the ladies' room, she overheard 2 donors speaking. "Clearly sleeping with Rivera for opportunities. Always has a favorite. Remember that cellist last year?" Humiliation burned through her. Was that all people saw? Not her dedication or talent, but a predictable pattern they'd witnessed before? Returning to the ballroom, she found Lucas deep in conversation with Vanessa, their history evident in their body language. Vanessa's hand rested possessively on his arm as she whispered something that made him laugh. When Lucas sought Sophia out later, she was already pulling on her coat. "Sophia, wait," she said, voice tight. "I heard things tonight about your previous favorites. Is that what I am? This year's charity case?" Pain flashed across his face. "That's not fair." "Isn't it? You've had a new talented musician to champion every season. Where are they now?" "This is different. You're different. Because you actually kissed the others?" The hurt made her cruel. "Or because you've realized mixing business and pleasure gets complicated?" Lucas stiffened. "I thought you knew me better than that." "I don't know you at all," she whispered. "We live in different worlds, Lucas. Tonight just made that clearer." She fled into the night, tears freezing on her cheeks, leaving him standing alone amid the glittering party that suddenly seemed as hollow as her hopes. The following weeks passed in painful isolation. Sophia threw herself into preparing for the donor showcase, channeling her heartbreak into Sibelius's haunting melodies. She avoided foundation events where Lucas might appear, attending only required sessions. When they did cross paths, professional courtesy masked the wreckage of what might have been. But sometimes, she caught him watching her with such longing that she nearly weakened. Then came the rumors that Vanessa would be performing with Lucas at the donor showcase, followed by an announcement of their professional reunion tour. Gossip swirled that their personal relationship had rekindled as well. The night before the showcase, Sophia practiced until her fingers bled, driving herself toward perfection that might prove she deserved her place, regardless of Lucas's interest. "Alina found you there at midnight." "You're destroying yourself," the older woman said gently. "I need to be flawless tomorrow." "Why? To prove something to Lucas?" Sophia's bow faltered. "To prove something to myself." Alina sat beside her. "Did you know Lucas rejected Vanessa's proposal for a reunion tour 3 times? Sophia looked up, confused. "He only agreed last week, with one condition, that the proceeds fund a new scholarship program for musicians from disadvantaged backgrounds." "That doesn't change anything," Sophia insisted, though uncertainty crept in. "Doesn't it? Lucas has never fought the board like he did for you. When they suggested removing you from the showcase after the gala, to avoid appearances, he threatened to resign." Sophia's heart contracted. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because," Elena said, rising to leave, "sometimes the most beautiful music comes from the spaces between notes, what is not played but deeply felt. You two are composing something rare. Don't let pride silence it before it's finished." Alone again, Sophia lifted her violin and began to play, not Sibelius this time, but an original composition that had been forming in her mind, a melody of longing and possibility that spoke what words could not.
Perfect cadence. The donor showcase arrived, the concert hall filled with Manhattan's elite. Backstage, Sophia peeked through the curtains, her gaze finding Lucas instantly. He sat in the front row, expression unreadable, Vanessa noticeably absent from his side. Mentees performed one after another, each brilliant in their technical precision. When Sophia's turn came, she walked onto the stage in a simple blue dress, her borrowed violin gleaming under the lights. The audience applauded politely, program notes indicating she would perform Sibelius. Instead, she lifted her bow and addressed them directly, something mentees never did. "Music speaks what cannot be expressed," she said, her voice steady despite her racing heart. "Tonight I'm playing something new, a piece I've composed called Intersections." Murmurs rippled through the crowd. In the front row, Lucas straightened, eyes widening with surprise. She began to play, and from the first note, the audience fell silent. The melody started tentatively, two distinct themes representing separate worlds, occasionally brushing against each other before retreating. Gradually, they intertwined, creating harmonies from their differences, building towards something both powerful and vulnerable. As she played, Sophia allowed herself to feel everything. The wine spill that started it all, their midnight conversation in the empty ballroom, their dance at the gala, the pain of separation. The music swelled with emotion, her body swaying with its force, tears streaming unchecked down her face. When the final note hung in the air, neither resolved nor abandoned, but waiting, the silence was complete. Then Lucas stood, applauding with unrestrained emotion, tears visible on his face. The audience followed, a standing ovation thundering through the hall. Sophia bowed, trembling, her eyes never leaving his. Backstage was chaos of congratulations from fellow mentees and foundation staff. Elena embraced her, whispering, "That wasn't just music, that was courage." Hours later, after speeches and champagne toasts, Sophia slipped away to the now empty stage. In the dim ghost light, she sat at the edge, feet dangling, staring at the rows of vacant seats. "I've been looking for you," came Lucas's voice from the darkness. He emerged from the wings, tie loosened, carrying something wrapped in cloth. "You changed your piece," he said, sitting beside her. "I needed to play my truth, not someone else's." His smile was soft. "It was the most beautiful thing I've ever heard." The silence between them felt different now, expectant rather than wounded. "Vanessa wasn't here tonight," Sophia finally said. "No. Our professional arrangements remain, but there's nothing more between us. There hasn't been for years." He hesitated. "The tour is happening, but I won't be traveling with it. I'm staying here to develop the scholarship program." "Why?" "Because some things matter more than others." His gaze held her steadily. "Some people matter more." He unwrapped the bundle he carried, revealing a violin case of worn leather. "This is for you," he said, opening it to display an instrument of warm, honeyed wood. "This belonged to my grandmother. She taught me that music isn't about status or wealth, it's about connection." Sophia touched the violin reverently. "Lucas, I can't accept this." "You can, because it's not a gift from mentor to student." He took her hand. "The mentorship program ends tonight. Tomorrow, you're a foundation alumna, free to make your own choices." Understanding dawned in her eyes. "And what choice are you hoping I'll make?" In answer, Lucas leaned forward, one hand gently cradling her face. This time, there were no interruptions as his lips met hers, the kiss gentle at first, then deepening with months of unspoken longing. Sophia's hands slid into his hair, pulling him closer, every barrier between their worlds finally dissolving. When they broke apart, breathless, Lucas pressed his forehead to hers. "I never planned this. You weren't part of any pattern, Sophia. You were the exception that changed everything." "I was afraid," she admitted, "not of you, but of losing myself, of becoming defined by you rather than my own talent." "I know," he said, his thumbs tracing her cheekbones. "That's why I fell in love with you. Your music, your determination to succeed on your own terms." "Love?" she whispered, the word both terrifying and exhilarating. "Love," he confirmed, "though we can call it something else if that scares you." Sophia laughed softly, joy bubbling up from somewhere deep inside. "It doesn't scare me anymore. Nothing does when I'm playing my own composition. In the empty concert hall, they created their own private symphony. Two people from different worlds finding harmony in the spaces between, their separate melodies finally converging into something beautiful neither could have created alone. And as Lucas pulled her close again, Sophia realized that the most perfect music wasn't found in flawless technique or prestigious stages, but in the vulnerable courage of two hearts beating in time, composing their future, one note at a time.
Melodies and mishaps. Sophia Chen balanced the tray of wine glasses with practiced precision, weaving between guests at the annual Maxwell Symphony Charity Gala with the grace that came from years of similar events. The Grand Palladium Hotel ballroom glittered with wealth and influence, its occupants draped in designer wear that cost more than her rent. Classical music drifted through the space, Vivaldi's Four Seasons, and her fingers unconsciously mimicked the fingerings on an invisible violin. "Careful there," murmured her colleague Marco as they passed. "The red wines are for table 7, symphony board members and their special guest, Lucas Rivera." Sophia nodded. Everyone in the classical music world knew Lucas Rivera, the brilliant producer who transformed struggling orchestras into cultural phenomena, whose foundation had launched dozens of careers. At 34, his reputation for musical genius was matched only by his reputation for being impossibly selective. "Just don't spill anything on Rivera," Marco added with a wink. "They say he once fired a conductor for wearing the wrong cologne." Sophia rolled her eyes but felt a flutter of nerves, so she approached the table. She had applied to his foundation's mentorship program twice. Rejection letters framed her bathroom mirror as motivation. Tonight, she was just another invisible server in a black uniform, not a musician with dreams too big for her tiny apartment. The table came into view and she recognized Rivera immediately. Tall, with warm brown skin, curly black hair styled impeccably, a subtle navy suit that probably cost more than her violin. Unlike the other guests, he wasn't talking, but was watching the string quartet with complete focus, one finger tapping slightly against his glass in perfect time. Sophia began distributing the wine, murmuring polite greetings. When she reached Rivera, her practice movement faltered as the quartet hit the allegro movement, her favorite passage, and her attention drifted to the music for just a second. It was enough. Her elbow knocked against Rivera's shoulder as he shifted in his chair, and crimson liquid splashed onto his white shirt cuff and the table's cream linens. "I'm so sorry," Sophia gasped, mortified, already reaching for her service napkin. "The allegro transition caught me off guard. They rushed it slightly." She froze, realizing she'd just criticized the music to Lucas Rivera of all people. He was looking at her with startled dark eyes, one eyebrow raised, not in anger, but curiosity. "You're right," he said, his voice surprisingly gentle. The first violin pushed ahead by nearly half a beat. Sophia blinked, dabbing at his sleeve. Most people wouldn't notice that. Most servers wouldn't either," he replied, studying her with new interest. "You play?" "Violin. Not professionally. Well, not yet, hopefully, someday." She was rambling now, acutely aware of the other guests staring. "Sophia," her manager hissed, "Mr. Rivera, I sincerely apologize." "No harm done," Lucas interrupted, still watching Sophia with that curious expression. "Accidents happen, especially when someone's truly listening to the music." Her manager looked confused but nodded stiffly. "Sophia, please get Mr. Rivera a club soda for his sleeve." As Sophia backed away, face burning with embarrassment, she caught Lucas Rivera's final words to the table. "You know, I've always believed that people who truly understand rhythm make the most interesting mistakes." She didn't know if it was kindness or mockery, but as she hurried to the service area, she couldn't shake the feeling that, in a room full of people trying to be seen, she'd somehow been the only one truly noticed.